Welcome back to BrilliantFIT, the podcast. My name's Jay, and I'm the creative producer. This is where we talk about all things BrilliantFIT and what it's like to work in today's modern-day business climate. So whether you're working, managing, or leading, we tackle it from all perspectives. So sit back, get comfy, and let's see what today's episode has in store. Guys, welcome back. This is BrilliantFIT, the podcast. It's season 2, and we're on to another episode. And I'm back again with my co-host Mel. Thank you for being here once again.
It's a pleasure.
Today's episode is a fun one for us because it's all based around secrets of the platform. So the top 3 things that people don't always know to use.
Yeah, especially when we focus on hiring. So let's get into the 3 secrets.
Let's do it. Let's dive in.
Yeah. So the little context was when we built BrilliantFIT as a platform, especially the hiring part, we wanted to bring elements that aren't often put together as part of that hiring process. So we wanted to be able to inform people who are making those choices and get the most data in their hands to make a great choice.
Okay.
And so the way we built it was very much saying, okay, well, let's understand, because we've all had experiences. You've hired someone, you've done something, and you thought they were brilliant.
Yeah.
They've got into the role, and they're just not performing.
Yeah.
Right? And so one of the first things we looked at, well, how do we actually understand a candidate's fit to a role? And so what we build on the platform, the first secret is very much around fit to the role.
Okay.
So we assess a candidate, or every candidate that comes through, as part of how well are they suited to that role from a talent perspective.
Right.
I had a client come to us, and they were using the development side, but not so much the recruitment side at that stage.
Okay. Yeah.
And they said, we've got a really interesting scenario. Someone in our accounts department, we employed them like 5-6 months ago. We've trained them, we've retrained them, and we've still got major issues with this person. They're a really nice person. We really like them, but they're making a lot of mistakes in the role.
Right.
And so I said, okay, well, let's understand. Let's understand their natural fit to the role. So they went through the process, which was done obviously way after
Yes.
the person had been hired. Much better to do it before
Absolutely.
they're hired. And one of the interesting things in accounting and finance role, we have benchmarks in this fit to the role. I should explain that.
Yeah.
So every particular role, we look at 24 different elements. Okay, they're parts of what we call factors and sub-factors of the natural talent process and natural talent understanding and assessment, and the various insights that the combinations of these factors and sub-factors create give us some of the insights for the benchmarks that we actually apply for a particular role.
Exactly. So it's essentially the way it's all the parameters that we're able to measure specific benchmarks against talent styles.
Yeah, so we then take those bell curves, if you like, of talent, and we allocate a benchmark range to a particular. In this case, we're talking about an accounting and finance. And if you're looking at levels of accuracy and focus and attention to detail, those elements, you would expect them in an accounting and finance area to be in the medium to higher zone.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
So we've created, obviously, that benchmark in that medium to higher zone.
Yeah, cool.
This person scored in the lowest 3% on attention to detail of the entire population. So it was no wonder they were struggling in their role.
Yes.
So when you have such a low attention to detail and your job requires it day in, day out, it's enormous stress on the person.
I was going to say, that's just exhausting.
It's exhausting. It was exhausting for this person, and they were trying hard.
Yeah.
But they were still making mistake after mistake.
How did they feel? Did you get to chat to them, or did you have an insight into their perspective on the situation, the individual?
Yeah, so I did get to have a chat to the individual, and it became obvious as part of the process. No, I'm not naturally very good at that.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what portion of your role is? Well, a fair bit.
Yeah.
Right. So there's not actually a match here.
Right.
Right. And when I showed it to the person who was hiring and made some of those choices, they went, aha, that explains an awful lot.
Yeah.
I wish we'd known that before we hired the person. It's actually not fair on the individual as well.
No, exactly.
Right? Because you're hiring someone who doesn't have the natural talent fit for that role. They would be much better in another role.
In case we didn't make it clear already, for everyone at home, BrilliantFIT helps you learn and understand all of these things when you're hiring. So when you need the information.
Yeah, when you need the information. And so when we're talking about fit to the role, that is built into the system now. So when candidates come through, all those elements, they have particular benchmarks, and the candidates' individual scores go over those benchmarks.
Yeah.
And so you can get a natural profile of what we call fit to a role.
Yep.
Now, you don't have to be 100% fit to the role at all, but anything over 70 is what we consider to be a generally good fit to the role.
Exactly.
When we talk about a 70% fit to the role,
Okay.
we're talking about, when you turn up every day, are the energies and your natural talents in the right zone? So that at least 70% of your day, what you're actually doing works.
Naturally, yeah.
Naturally for you. We always allow, 10, 20, 30% in the zone where you can develop and grow into things.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as the majority of your talents are in that role, that's healthy and that's great.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And you can grow in. If you're 85 at 90, fantastic, right? From that perspective, but you don't need to be 100%. It's not perfect fit.
No,
it's what
no,
we call brilliant fit.
When you are that, exactly, and when you are that strong, as you've talked about before, when you're that strong a fit, it'll be because you have certain aspects that are on the stronger end of different scales, and so you'll have different parameters to work with that you'll need to balance out.
Yeah, and the other thing to bear in mind as well is you also may be in the 70% zone, but there may be some key things, right, that are not in the zone, and they actually may still be really important.
Do we call them outliers?
They are outlying talents,
right,
from that perspective, because they're clearly outside the benchmark zone, and that's an important consideration in itself.
Yeah.
So it's important not just to understand the overall fit, but which elements aren't actually a natural fit to the role.
Yes.
And so fit to the role is a really important part when you're assessing a particular candidate.
Absolutely.
The next element, and one of the secrets that people often miss, is what's the fit to the leader? So you might hire a person to do a particular role, but we all know that we bring all this vast different array of talents to a particular situation. And the person leading that person, they will bring their own set of talents. And sometimes they might be a close match, sometimes they might be completely opposite.
Exactly.
So we do a fit to the leader. So the purpose of that is not necessarily to determine if we put a lot more emphasis on fit to the role and fit to the team. The fit to the leader is really insights into how to maximise the effectiveness of the relationship.
Right, it's a follow-on from step one.
Correct, it's a follow-on. So it doesn't come before step one, but it is a nice follow-on from it.
Yes.
To say, if I had two candidates that were really great fit to the role, one is polar opposites, my leader, and the other one has a much closer alignment, then you're probably going to go with the one who's got more alignment.
Right, yeah, essentially because you're setting up...
Because it's easier for the leader to work with that one, coach, develop and support.
Exactly, and that's another energy expenditure element.
Correct, from the leader's perspective.
Exactly.
And also from the candidate's perspective.
Yeah.
So you've got to think of, well, in that first 3 to 6 months, the candidates are coming into that role, right? They're going to still be anxious. They're going in that honeymoon period. It's a new environment. It's new leaders. It's new teammates.
Yeah.
There may be aspects of the role that are new. That's enough pressure and stress without having a major difference in the way that their leader relates to them.
Exactly right.
And so if you can get a good alignment, fantastic.
Yeah.
If the person is still right for the role and you really want to pursue it, but your manager is completely different, the process actually gives you the insights, right, to how to maximise that relationship. And so that kind of fit to the manager is often what we call the jumpstart report.
Yes.
Provides really good insights into how to work across really 6 key areas, the greatest areas of difference.
Right.
The things that they'll notice most.
Yeah.
Right? If one's a really strong decision maker and the other's not. Right? That's significant, because if the strong decision maker is expecting the other person to be a strong decision maker and they're not, they're going to be disappointed.
Exactly.
Right? And so learning to understand those differences and learning then how to relate and bring them together and what they need to be aware of.
Yeah.
Really just sets the candidate and the leader up for success.
It's like the best management of expectations.
Yeah, it is about managing expectations, and that's a
Yeah.
really good point to draw on, because there was some research done recently by one of the job boards, actually,
Okay.
and it said in their particular scope of work, the people who had been successful in getting jobs, right, 65% of them had actually been looking at job boards again within 3 months.
Yeah, wow.
Now that is terrible.
Yeah, that doesn't say much for like job satisfaction.
No. So clearly something has gone wrong.
Yeah.
Either the job is not what they expected, right? Either the team or the environment or the culture or the leader is very different. So if you've got a huge proportion of people going, you know what, not sure this is for me, what's out there, continue to look.
Yeah.
Now, of course, not 65% would necessarily make the choice to leave, but that's a huge issue.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, that's identifying how people are feeling in that first window, and how people feel will directly reflect how they perform.
There was some other research was quoted as saying, at one stage, I don't know whether it's true now, but it was a couple of years ago, was saying 80% of the reason why people were leaving within their first, 6 to 12 months was their relationship with their line manager.
Oh, I believe that so
Right?
often.
So, whether it's 80, whether it's 60, doesn't really matter. The issue is the relationship with their line manager is critical.
Absolutely. I personally have had that.
Right.
I've left a role, and it was the right decision to leave that role, purely because the relationship with the line manager was unhealthy.
Right.
Borderline toxic.
Right.
And so
What made it toxic for you?
the lack of trust and empowerment in us as individuals. They hired us to do a job, but didn't trust us to do it in the way that was individually needed.
Right.
So they were very heavy on micromanagement. And then also I think their inability to trust left them creating situations to constantly be disappointed
Right.
in, if that makes sense. So they lived kind of in a bit of a fantasy world. Not entirely, but as far as their expectations went. I think like they were so unable to be generous without fear of rejection or being scorned, so they would create a culture or environment in the workplace where they thought they were being super generous all the time, but then people would just go about it, say thank you, whatever, and because we were just working in an environment trying to focus on our jobs, and we weren't going above and beyond out of our way to return the favour, I got quite jaded and hurt by that.
Right.
And so it was just an unmatched expectations environment. So I guess that's probably why it jumped out at me before.
What was let me ask you another question. What was the particular personal aspect for you? How did it impact you?
How did it impact me personally?
Yeah.
Quite strongly, quite heavily. Like it created such a sense of anxiety and stress in my life. I'm a very relaxed person most of the time, and I'm very used to getting on well with people. And so when that doesn't happen, it's quite confronting to me, quite shocking. And when it's an environment where I try consistently to improve that relationship, but it's a dynamic that I eventually learned just couldn't be improved. That honestly made me so anxious and stressed that I became physically unwell ongoing. Right. As a result of that. And I've heard of that happening, like that correlation happening where it ends up affecting people's physical health more than once. So
yeah, it's just out of interest. Was there low or high turnover in that organisation.
Incredibly high.
Incredibly high. Okay.
Like,
I thought so, but I thought I'd just check.
Like the level of turnover was, I'm pretty sure they would have 2 or 3 people turnover in those roles every 6 months.
Oh, wow.
6 to 12 months, I should say.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal turnover.
Yeah.
That's way, way outside the norm.
Yeah. And it was a structure where it was like a smaller company. They were hiring for certain roles that were like, a lot of them were the same role. And so they were, hire a bunch of them at the same time, and
Turnover
they would
hole.
last however long, and
Right.
then just constantly replace as they went. And
That's a huge, huge cost.
huge cost.
Both to you personally, but also to the organisation.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's a lose-lose for everybody.
Yeah. So that's why fit to the manager is actually important,
Very important.
right? And to be able to work with that. So that's the second kind of secret that we include in the platform. And the third one, which is very much a cultural one, is the fit to the team.
Yes.
So the ability to look at a candidate and drop their data into the team to see the impact it's likely to have.
Yeah.
This was really emphasised to me recently in a conversation with a particular leader. And we were looking at, they were actually a recruitment company.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so, or certainly this person was leading a bunch of recruiters.
Yes.
And so there's quite a few in the team. And they were looking at, and one of the interesting things was they were talking about, how do we actually get different people to step up in their roles in doing it. And so we looked at the team data, and they said, I'm doing this, this and this, and I'm empowering them and I'm encouraging them, but they keep wanting to come back to me to make the decision all the time. Yeah. I go, that's interesting. I said, the first reference point I always have is, what's the data say? So I looked at the team data, and the average decision making across that entire group was in the lower 25% of the population. Right? And so their natural desire wasn't there.
Yeah. They're naturally going to want to revert to somebody that they trust to make the decision.
Right. So this person, as their leader, had a very constant missed expectation that he'd hired people who were all in this low zone.
He probably just thought that all they had to do was empower them to make their own decisions. But
that was his intent, and that's what he thought.
Exactly. But if, like he found out, if they're not naturally wired that way, there's a fair bit more involved.
There is a lot more involved, and to get them to step up to the level that he was expecting, which was not super high, right? But it was to be able to lead stuff effectively on their own in various ways and be responsible.
Exactly.
Right? They weren't doing it.
Yeah.
And these were nothing to do with age or anything like that, or experience. So some of these people had been 25 years in the roles.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's more natural inclination.
It's natural inclination. And one of those interesting things I said to him later was, I said, look, and he had probably 10, 20% turnover in the team. It's a reasonably big team.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so here's your opportunity. Strategically going forward, when you're looking to hire replacements for these people,
let's focus on
ensuring that the fit to the team element covers this higher desire for decision making.
Yeah.
So that over time you're replenishing the staff with people who are in this zone, that you can actually rely on them in a more effective way to be key leaders of different elements of your team.
Yeah, okay.
And to naturally step up and do it.
Yeah.
And he went, that's actually a very good thought. Right?
Yeah.
And you go, sometimes we just don't put these things together.
Yeah.
And we just expect people to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe because that's our wiring.
True.
Right? Maybe it's in the way we communicate. Right? We might have a whole bunch of direct people in a team, and that creates a tension in itself as well.
Yeah.
So when you're hiring people in, if you're hiring someone else into the team and they're also super direct, just be aware of the dynamic you're creating.
Yeah.
Because the culture may be exacerbated. And when you get too many direct people in a room, they're brilliant if they're all on the same page.
Yes, true.
But rarely are we all on the same page. And so it's helpful if you've got more people who are a lot more adaptive or diplomatic.
Absolutely.
right,
Yeah.
as well into the mix, so that you get this balance and you get different perspectives, and you get better people thinking clearly about what they want to communicate and how they want to, rather than just saying it like it is, as they say.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Telling people what it is like it is. Right?
Having a dynamic team can be such a powerful thing.
Yeah, it is such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And dynamicness comes in different ways.
It does.
Right? It also comes from people like, I was talking with a leader of an organisation, and I was describing the whole issue of risk, and he was kind of looking at me a little funny at times. I'm talking, well, let's talk about how risk plays itself out.
Yeah.
If you just look at it in itself, you go, oh yeah, maybe. But I said, what are the dynamics? If someone is a high risk taker and they're doing a particular role, maybe it's in construction,
Yeah.
maybe they drive an implement, or they handle a piece of construction equipment. Right?
Yeah.
If they're high risk, they may cut corners.
Yeah.
Is that important or not?
Yeah.
Well, if they're a loader driver or a grader driver, and they just think, they look at a particular embankment and think, well, yeah, sure, I can handle that.
Right.
This machine will handle that. Well, this was the context, as it turned out, because this was a leader of a construction company I was talking to.
Right.
And he said,
example, then.
I think I've got someone who's a high risk taker.
Right.
Right? Because he's cost me $50,000
Yeah.
this year alone by doing things he should not have done.
Yeah.
And I said, well, so give me an example. And he said, well, he went up an embankment that probably you and I'd look at it and say, that's not what he should do. Too risky, too steep. And he rolled it.
Yeah.
He rolled the grader,
Oh, jeez.
right? He rolled the grader. Another time he was doing something and he went into an area that he just bogged it. And it bogged for 2 or 3 days. We couldn't get it out.
Wow.
And these things are thousands of dollars a day to operate, right? So we lost the days, we lost his work and effort and time.
Coming back from that is a lot.
And the rolling, we then have to get it all checked out. We had to do repairs and maintenance. It was off for 3 weeks, getting repaired,
Yeah.
all this kind of things. And he then put it together and understood the dynamic in the team that he was creating in that case was high risk.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that plays out. If you've got 1 or 2 high-risk people, they can be helpful because they can push the boundaries a bit occasionally.
Right.
But if they're operating in a role that's critical to safety, that's not so good a thing.
Yeah, it's not ideally not a great situation to be pushing the boundaries.
But if you're operating and you've got a higher risk and you're operating in a project and you've got lots of input, right, those people can suggest and push the boundaries and actually help you be more successful.
Absolutely. In environments where there is flexibility and there is a lot more leeway, you often will find people that will stick to the boundaries because inherently they feel comfortable and they feel confident working within boundaries.
Well, if you've got finance people, you would hope they stick to the boundaries, right?
Exactly. That's a perfect example of where that's really important.
So there are rules and procedures, and
Exactly.
you don't want people getting paid differently all the time.
No.
They follow the process, they follow the thing, and most of those people you would find in finance and accounting tend to be medium to low risk.
Right. What about
That's a good fit for them.
Investment bankers? Would they be higher risk? by nature?
Often, merchant bankers, investment bankers are often high risk.
Yeah.
Why? They can see opportunities. They're prepared to take risks. They're prepared to do things, right, that others aren't.
There you go.
And so, just saying in right across the board, a higher risk is not what you want. In certainly traditional types of accounting and things, you would expect it to be medium low.
Yeah.
Investment banking, you might expecting it to be much higher.
Exactly.
However, you don't want to get into the Enron situation.
The what?
The Enron situation, which is the large energy company in the US
Right.
that went down and took Arthur Andersen with it,
Right.
which is one of the large consulting companies globally,
Okay.
because they were the auditors.
Because of too many risks taken?
Yeah, the CFO was cooking the books and being very creative, right? It was creativity and risk together.
Right.
So he was creatively accounting the way the finances of the
Right,
company
okay,
and
creative
projecting
accounting, yes.
an image to the public, right, that wasn't actually a reality of what was going on behind the scenes.
I'm with you.
And there's some rules around that. So look, fit to the team is really important as the third element. So what's the culture they're going to bring? What impact are they going to have in your team?
Yeah.
So those three elements, right? Fit to the role,
Yep.
really important. Fit to the leader is important,
Yep.
but also fit to the team
Yeah.
and how it actually comes together.
Yeah.
So they're three aspects or three what we call platform secrets
Yes.
that are really important in understanding when you're actually hiring people.
Absolutely. They changed the game for sure. And given the examples that you shared, it's so easy to see how, like, not only having that information, but when you have that information,
Yeah.
can save you so much time and money, especially in the hiring context.
Yeah, absolutely. It's letting the data inform you, right, so that you can make informed choices.
Woo. There you go. Another coined phrase for you.
We'll have to go in that one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's
good. Awesome. Well, yep. Another terrific topic covered off. Thank you for your time today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
As always, I'll see you in the next episode.
Okay. Thanks, Jay.